afternoon, good morning, good evening. Halika kayo, sama ko kayo. Pupunta tayo ng Georgetown, Texas. Mamamasyal tayo sa Inner Space Cavern. Okay, see you there. Bye-bye. I'm back! Hindi nyo na ako nakikita no, sa video. Kasi may linalandscape ako sa likod ng bakura namin. Ay pinilit ko na matapos. Hanggang ngayon tuloy, ayan, nakatenga. Hindi ko matapos-tapos. Pinilit ko magbuhat ng buhangin. Linalagay ko sa karmatilya, siyempre, may karmatilya naman ako. Kaya lang, pagbaba, siyempre, gagamitin mo pa rin na bubuhatin mo. Pinakabuhat ako ng almost 8 bags ng buhangin. Ayun, bumigay yung balakang ko, sumakit yung balakang ko. Kaya hindi ako makabuhat ng mabigat. Pero, everyday, nasa garden pa naman ako. Kaya lang, yun nga, hindi ako makapag-vlog magpapakita ko sa inyo kung paano ako maggawa ng mag-landscape o kasi syempre magbubuhat ako, hindi ako makabuhat, tatakot ako baka bumigay uli yung balakang ko, kaya ganun. Pero baka somewhere this week, mga Wednesday o Thursday, magbablog ako ng kasi para matapos ko yung ginagarden ko sa likod. Okay, kanina pumunta kami sa Georgetown, dito sa Texas. Pumunta kami sa Inner Cavern? Inner Space Cavern, Inner Space Cavern. Actually, pang tatlo ko nang punta doon, kaya alam ko, kung pupunta ka, kasi noon, di naman ako nagbibideo kasi di ba na ako nagbablog eh. Kaya wala akong dalang flash, wala akong dalang ilaw. So ngayon, nag-ready ako. Nagdala ako ng flash, nagdala ako ng maliit na ring light kasi sabi ko nga para maganda yung video. Kaso pinagbawal. Ayaw nilang gumamit ka na anything na may ilaw, may flash. Kasi baka magulat daw yung mga paniki. Kasi guys, may nakatira doon ng mga paniki. Ang liliit nila. Ang liliit na paniki. So, ayaw nila magulat yung kasi pag nabibigla na nakakakita ng ilaw, nagpa-flash, naglilipara. So, ayaw nilang ma-istorbo yung paniki. Kaya ganun. So, yung nag-tour guide lang, may dala siyang flashlight. Tapos, may mga unti namang ilaw dun sa side na siyempre, paano mo makita yung dadaanan mo. So, may certain areas naman dun na may ilaw. Pero yung gusto mong kunan na mga tawag dito, yung mga bato, may doon, may mga part na di mo talaga madilim. Kaya sana mag-enjoy din kayo kahit paano. Kahit medyo madilim, yung iba may liwanag din naman kasi may portion doon na talagang linagyan din nila ng ilaw. Kaya may portion na talagang madilim, maririnig mo lang yung nagsasalita doon, yung nagtutour guide. Kaya ganun. So, pakatapos ko nito, i-upload ko para makita nyo. So, sana mag-enjoy kayo, ha? Sa mga maraming dumating mga baguhan na subscriber na hindi pa ako kilala, my name is Ophelia Ongmalong, originally from San Francisco. Sabi ko nga Bicol ako. San Francisco, Bicol po yon, hindi sa Amerika. San Francisco, Bicol. Kasi akala nila taga-Amerika na ako. Pinanganak ako sa Amerika, San Francisco. Hindi po, Bicol. San Francisco, Pulot, Bicol. Ay, ayun. Ayun. Salamat sa mga bagong subscriber ko. Ako nga po talaga, ay si Ophelia Ongmalong. Pangalawa, magpapasalamat ako sa mga grabing nagsuporta sa akin nung nag-live ako. At maraming salamat. Kundi kay Mi Amor Babes, hindi ako nakapag-ganun kasi hindi pa naman ako marunong. So, tinutulungan niya ako. Sabi niya, Piyang, halika, mag-live ka. Akong bahala. Ako Ako ang mag-host sa imo. Sabi ko na, anong gagawin ko? Hindi ako marunong. Basta, dyan ka lang. So, siyang nagpa-games kami, ganon. Hindi ko akalain, guys, na akala ko, pag nagaganon, nagla-live sila, inaabot lang ng 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Ay, naku po, inaabot kami ng 4 hours. Imagine, nag-stay talaga sila ng 4 hours. Mga ano na yun, antok na yun kasi nag-start dito kami sa Texas, 8 o'clock dito sa Texas, 8, 9, 10, 11, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Past 12 na dito ng tanghali kami natapos. So, that means, past 1 o'clock na sa Pilipinas. Pasado alauna na sa Pilipinas natapos. Kaya 4 hours nag-stay sila. So, ganun. Ang suporta nila na ginawa sa akin. Kaya maraming salamat. Ano pa ba? Sana mag-enjoy kayo sa sa cave. Pinilit ko talaga na itutok dun sa may liwanag, pero may portion talaga na kahit na anong gawin ko talagang madilim. May makita ka lang na unting na liwanag dito. Yung mga ilaw kasi nila, hindi talaga naka-open yung kunwari may bumbilya na gano'n. Kinukuberan nila ng bato na gano'n. So, unti lang yung ilaw na makikita mo na ilaw dito. Hindi naka-open. Kung naka-open sana yun, maganda dahil talagang maliwanag yung nila, yung surroundings nila. Pero, pinili ko talaga na magtutok sa may liwanag. Pero may mga may mga kuha talaga ako na talagang may madilim. Wala tayong magawa. Ayaw tayo pa gamitin ng ilaw. Nagdala akong ilaw. Tatlo ang dala ko. Kaso, bawal. Kaya ganun. So, maraming salamat ha. Maraming salamat sa mga new subscriber ko, sa mga datihan ko ng subscriber. Thank you. Sa uulitin. So, enjoy kayo. I-upload ko after this. I-upload ko para mapanood nyo. Okay? Good night. Bye-bye. See you next time. See you Wednesday. Mag-vlog na ako sa garden. Abangan nyo. Bye-bye.
Make them ourselves. If you can see this hole, top left side, one over the middle, and one on the right-hand side, that's actually where sticks of dynamite were placed in order to blast open this entrance. Now, as we continue walking down, it will be wet. Please make sure to watch your step.
Oh, that's why it's cold.
Yep.
Yes.
Here you go. Okay guys, papasok na tayo sa cave. Ang daming tao, ang tagal namin nakapasok, ang haba ng pila, dami namamasyal dito.
Here we have the eastern pipistrelle bat. They're the second smallest bat in the world, just about as big as your thumb when they are full grown. And here we have a nice little nickname for them. We like to call them our furry little chicken nuggets. About 50 feet to 1 mile.
Wow.
So those lights are there to show us that the cave has some depth. The second thing I talk about is right over here. This pathway is actually the entrance into the Hidden Passages trail. That's the trail where everybody gets a flashlight. We limit those groups to about 10 people, and it's a very narrow and unpaved walkway. Before we begin our tour, would anybody like to take photos? If you guys want to take a photo, you can walk right up in front and I'll grab a picture of you with the camera.
You want to take one?
Alright, so this is Soda Straw Balcony. We call it that because of these spiky guys on the ceiling. Another name for these guys are stalactites. Stalactites are formed when rainwater comes down from the sky and passes through soil. Soil has carbon dioxide in it. The rainwater mixing with the carbon dioxide creates carbonic acid. Has anybody heard of carbonic acid before? If you have, it's probably on the back of a soda can. Carbonic acid is actually in Coca-Cola, Sprite, Pepsi, root beer, ton of other sodas. That carbonic acid then passes through what's above our heads right now. This is limestone. Limestone has calcite in it. That carbonic acid dissolves the calcite inside of the limestone. And then it comes down to the ceiling of our cave where it hits oxygen and starts. Drapery column. If you think of a sponge in your hand filled with water and you squeeze that sponge as hard as you can, water will run down the side of your arm. It's exactly what's happening here to the outside of this stalactite, and it's forming an irregular stalagmite. If you look at the ceiling, this is actually fossilized coral reef.
What?
And that's because this part of Texas was under a shallow sea about 120 to 125 million years ago. Inside of that coral reef, you can see these little guys. These are known as rudis bivalves. Rudis bivalves were an ancient type of clam. They looked a lot like my flashlight. They had a lid on the top, and anytime they got scared from predators, they would go back inside of their shells and cover up top with their lids. And that's it for drapery column, but we're going to walk straight around us. There's even some right over here next to the bat. This is chert on my right-hand side. It's like a sea sponge, and it's hardened.
Watch for... That's pretty.
All right, guys, you can move up a little bit more if you can't see. We do have a little bit more room up here. As you guys shift up, does anybody here like ice cream? Yes. Perfect. This is ice cream parlor, and we call it that because of how our formations look. Right in front is our vanilla ice cream cone.
Yeah, look.
Back here is our chocolate sundae. And up top is our Texas-sized ice cream sandwich.
Banana split.
Does anybody want to try and guess what flavor that ice cream sandwich is?
Chocolate.
It is not chocolate.
Caramel.
No.
Caramel.
Limestone?
No.
Limestone?
Limestone? No. That is a good one, though. I'll go ahead and tell you I'd call it a rocky road. Okay, right over here is the kissing column. As you can see, they have not met yet. They'll meet in about 49 years. Our rate of growth is 1 cubic inch for every 100 years. So that's about an ice cube for 100 years. And next to that, we actually have our 2 oldest columns. These are called the broomsticks. Now, as we continue on with the tour, please make sure to watch your heads. We're about to go under Headache Alley. And whatever can't stick to the ceiling falls to the ground. What's on the ground is called stalagmites. The easiest way to remember this is stalactites hold tightly to the ceiling, and stalagmites might reach the ceiling. When they touch each other, they form columns. And for some people in the back, you might not be able to see it. You'll see it as we walk by. There's some colorful lights on the right-hand side, and that's because right underneath there's a hole. That hole is called Dusty's Crawl, and it's actually what connects our tour to the Hidden Passage tour. Alright guys, as we continue walking, we're going to stay to our left-hand side and let that tour group pass by. And as you guys walk in, if you're looking for more bats, you can definitely see them in here. I think there's 2 in the middle, 1 up top on the other side. And there was 1 back there somewhere. You guys walk in and you're looking at the bats. Does anybody notice anything missing from this room?
Stalactites.
Exactly, there's no stalactites or stalagmites, and that's all because of this white rock that's surrounding us. This rock is known as dolomite. Dolomite acts like a sponge. It sucks up water and moisture that's in the air. It'll feel a lot nicer here than when we're at the bottom of the cave. The bottom of the cave has close to 98% humidity. Walking out through here, it feels a lot better. We call it our cave AC. The second type of rock I'll talk about is right here. This is limestone. Limestone has calcite in it, and that's what creates our stalactite and stalagmite formations. It's also what purifies our water a little bit. And as this tour group passes by, we're going to stay over on my side. discovery room, and this is where I give a little bit of history about the cave. But first, just want you guys to know, this is actually the second largest room in the cave, so pretty big. Anyway, the cave was found in 1963 when they were testing the ground above us for I-35. In all, they dropped 23 drill bits into the ground. 8 drill bits actually broke through the surface of the cave. Right here is one of those drill bits. And right here is a drill bit that was expanded to about 2 feet wide. That was also the first hole people entered. Back in 1963 on that I-35 team, 2 geologists, one named Jim Sampson, the other named Jack Bingham, entered the cave using that hole and an auger drill rig. The first thing they saw was this formation right here. And after seeing that, they wanted to explore more. They had to explore ice cream parlor side first because the entire other side of the cave was actually flooded with water. It took about a year to pump out all that excess water. Now as we continue walking through the cave, I'll talk to you about the flowing stone of time. If you could stand on the other side of that line, that would be perfect. They drilled a core sample, and that was about 27,000 years old. Whoa. Then they found out the entire age of the formation, which was about 340,000 years old. So pretty old. It is a flow stone, so it's formed a little bit differently than a regular stalactite or stalagmite. There's a fissure at the top, and water flows down the side of it. You can actually see the water flowing down right now.
Mm-hmm. Where's the water coming from, do you know?
Yeah, so the water comes from surface. All of the water that's in the cave came from the surface at one point as rainwater. It takes about 5 days for the water to actually come through all the layers of the earth before it's down here. And then after it's here, it passes down below us again. All that water collects in either the ground, or if you'd like to step up to this line and look into it, there's a rim pool right here.
Whoa! It looks so clean.
So our water was tested here. It has 97% purity, and it is completely drinkable water. Not when it rains a lot. The last time there was any flooding was in 2016, and that was just Lake of the Moon being pretty flooded, but that's about it.
So where's the fish? Small fish.
We actually don't have any aquatic life in our cave. Yeah, that's a speaker. This whole tour used to be done by audio.
It looks like it was flow is bouncing.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I like watching it ripple down here.
You can swim under it.
You didn't get a chance to see this rim pool, that's perfectly fine. When we go down to Lake of the Moon, it's actually filled with water right now, so you'll definitely see some more rim pools at the end. You can actually see another one of the drill bits right over here. And all on the ceiling, you can see it looks really pretty. This was actually all done by water. The water table reached the ceiling in this room, and through weathering and erosion over time, it broke down how the ceiling looked to give it that nice ripply effect. In this back corner over here, there's a dome, and this is actually where a whirlpool formed. That formed from a fissure on the right-hand side and left-hand side, forcing water in and turning it around. you might be wondering where all this water actually came from. It came from right over here. This is one of 5 sinkholes we had in our cave. It is the largest one, just about the size of a football field. And it's also the first place where animal bones were found. I talk about animals a little bit later on in the tour, but what I mentioned here is 44 different types of animals were found in our cave, and 11 of those animals are now extinct. Up top. Without that flint, it would all come down. When you're looking at it, you can see this white stuff. Anytime you see anything white and glossy like this in the cave, that's showing you that it's a newer formation. It's the calcite starting to harden. And the last thing I talk about here is the Edwards Aquifer. So we're about 120 feet above the Edwards Aquifer right now. If you do not know what that is where places like San Antonio and Georgetown get their water supply. The bottom of Castle Balcony actually used to fill up with some water, but since there's such a high demand on that aquifer, it's pushed down and we barely ever see it here anymore. As we continue on with our tour, we're going to go under Short Man's Revenge. Please make sure to watch your heads.
Oh, again?
Short Man.
Alright guys, if you want to move up a little bit more, you're more than welcome to.
There's a sloth. There's a dinosaur.
Alright, so a little bit of history about this wall. This was actually created with a purpose. On the other side, there was a sinkhole and then a mudslide. This wall held all that back. And then in the late 80s, we had it painted. Nobody wants to stare at a boring cement wall, so we had it painted with some of the animals that were found down here. Over on my left-hand side is a giant ground sloth. They were about the size of an SUV, and their nails grew so long they had to start walking on their knuckles.
That's sad.
Up next is the Glyptodon.
It's a dinosaur.
Oh, these look like an armadillo.
Yeah, it's a relative of an armadillo, actually. Except they had fused shells. They couldn't
It
roll
had
up at
the
all.
spiky tail on a...
Yeah, that tail, that was actually their primary weapon. It was actually so heavy, they couldn't even lift it up. They could only swing it from left to right. They were about the size of a Volkswagen Bug. Up next is the Equus. The Equus was a really small type of pony, and hiding right next to him is the black-tailed prairie dog. The black-tailed prairie dog is actually the only animal on this wall that is relatively unchanged since the time its bones were found to now. So it's pretty much the same. If you guys want to scoot up a little bit more, you're more than welcome to. Long. And they were a super agile animal. All the other animals came into the cave using sinkholes. They also used the sinkholes, except they were actually able to walk down and walk back out. We think they came down here to raise their cubs because it was safe and because they had a lot of food. They had a lot of food thanks to the peccary. The peccary was like a wild boar, and they had a leader. If that leader decided to one day fall into a hole, all of the rest of the peccary would follow, which is why they were the most common animal found down here. And if you guys want to scoot up more, I'll talk about the last two animals. The first one is the camel. We don't know if they had 1 or 2 humps when they were in our cave, and that is because their humps are made out of cartilage, and cartilage does not fossilize. And the last animal is the Columbian mammoth. They were a relative of a woolly mammoth. Woolly mammoths came up to about here on them. The longest pair of their tusks were actually found here in Texas. They were 17 feet long. And they were herbivores. They didn't eat meat. Although, if you got stepped on by one, it might hurt just a little bit. They weighed close to 2 tons. As we continue walking out, if you look to your left-hand side, you'll be able to see bone fragments and tusk fragments. All right, so this is Imagination Station, and it's called that because of the rock formations we have in here. Kids say they can see shapes in our rock formations, and I'll talk to you about some of them now. So over on our right-hand side, you might be able to see jaws coming out of the water.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shocking.
In front of us is Jack and Rose on the front of the Titanic.
Oh.
On our left-hand side is Ariel, laying on a dolphin. If anybody is hungry, we do have a corn dog.
It's like a boo-boo.
Corn dog to me.
Yeah.
I don't really like crunchy corn dogs, but I do like crunchy bacon.
Oh, that's a good one.
And next to that, we have a bacon butterfly. The last thing I talk about in here is stalagmites that have high purity. So back here, you can see one. The light is shining through it right now. There's actually two more behind us that I can light up, which is Lake of the Moon. These lights emit a lot more heat, and since they emit so much more heat, with the humidity, it creates kind of the algae that you see on the rocks. Lake of the Moon is Alright guys, this is Lake of the Moon. A lot of people say this is the most beautiful room we have. I agree. I love how it looks with the water down here. I've actually heard of a couple proposals down here, so that's crazy too. Proposals, like marriage proposals. This is also the deepest part of our tour. We're around 80 feet underground right now. So down here I like to test out total darkness. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Just so you know, there's a tour group behind us. So the lights will stay on behind us. If you don't want to see total darkness, you can look that way. If you do want to see total darkness, I recommend looking straight into Lake of the Moon. Okay. Okay. I'm going to see. All right, guys. I'll give us a quick countdown before I turn off the lights. In 3, 2, 1. We're going to want to make sure any phones or lights are off right now. That would be perfect. Excuse me, ma'am. Do you mind turning on your light?
Sorry.
You're okay. enjoyed your tour. If you did, my name is Zachary. If you did not enjoy your tour, this is very important. My name is Sebastian. Please write Sebastian if you did not like your tour. As we exit, please make sure to watch your heads on this last low-hanging ceiling. Aside from that, we are all good to walk back up.
So what's he doing? Exactly.